Councilman Michon. Councilman Clark Curtis was in an accident. He is at home. He won't be appearing by Zoom either. He's recuperating, and so I just wanted you to know that. Members at the table, City Clerk and Treasurer James Johnson, Program Director Comptroller Rebecca Terrion, additional staff present, Tom Bernier, Travis Bingham. Anybody else am I missing here? Additions and deletions or changes to the agenda. Item number 2.
Are we going down the table or just? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
My fault. I was going this way, but we can go this way.
If you like going down.
Now I'm going to start with you.
All right. Just to add a discussion about and a possible vote about adding the Robert's Rules of Order to our already established Newport City rules and procedures for the City Council.
Okay. Do I have a motion for that? A motion to add Robert's rules for discussion purposes?
Yes.
For discussion?
I'll make that motion if he wants to talk about it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. I'm sorry?
No, it's going to write it out.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. Oh my goodness, we're all going to be hoarse at the end of the line. I'm actually going to add that now, if that's all right. Okay? So can we please go forward with having the discussion now on adding Robert's rules?
Do we need? Is there any other additions before we do that?
I don't think so.
All right. Just for the sake of making things more structured and more, we are going to lose our voices.
I know.
Excuse me. And so that we have a more solid backing of.
Take your time. I'll even share my tissues.
Oh. Let's try that again. Hey, that worked. Okay. A more clear understanding of backing of what we're doing and the procedures of what we're following. I understand the Robert's Rules of Order are pretty widely recognized, and then we can kind of tuck them into what we have established, and we have. What am I trying to say here?
Uniformity.
Uniforming a structure to how we're running the meetings without it then being questioned of why we're doing it this way and picking it this way. So.
I agree. It gives a framework. We're pretty much following them now. But I think if there's a question, as Councilman Bashan said, we can always refer to that and say, all right, this is how it would happen in Robert's Rules.
We do use Robert's Rules, but I would, question whether you want to make it mandatory since, there's statutes and everything else. We do want to refer to it and we do use it.
Well, that's what I figured, because essentially it's already established as a board that we've been using it just to make it more
Right.
formalized onto the printed pages.
I have 3 books. Do you want one?
I have one because it's one of my classes, so.
President Wilson, do you have any comment? So what exactly would you like the motion to be?
I guess just to formally adopt Robert's Rules as the procedures.
Do you want to use
Standards,
it as a
procedures.
formal procedure, or do you want to use it to incorporate into the procedure?
Well, looking at the rules and procedures that are already in place in Newport, I think there's a place in there for it to be.
Right,
Right.
but we don't want it to be the
Right.
procedure.
So, possibly moving on to drafting how that inclusion would work into the city rules and procedures that already exist, rather than, because there are things that just apply. I looked and I couldn't see Robert's rules actually in there, so.
Okay.
Just to formalize it.
So formalize it that we would use it as a priority reference.
Yeah, I can see that.
I just don't want it to, I'm just thinking you don't want it to eliminate everything else. You just want it to
Right.
be the groundwork.
Well, I think, looking back, I should have brought it with me.
It's okay.
The rules and procedures would have a place in there where it would have that. It wouldn't take over any of the.
So incorporate it into our rules and procedures.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
give me a motion.
I'll try. Give me a second. I move to formally adopt Robert's rules into our rules and procedures. Yep.
I have a motion to formally adopt Robert's rules into our rules and procedures. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment?
I just have one concern. The more rules we have, the more chances we have for making an honest mistake, deviating slightly from the rules, and having another series of questions raised, and having another opportunity for a lawyer to have to come in and spending more money on what I would regard as sort of frivolous issues. And I trust you, and we've been doing it sort of informally all along. I mean, I trust you guys to do it and not have us have another source of controversy. So I just think about it.
Yes, ma'am.
Melissa Pedersen, Newport. I guess I have a slightly different view of this. Because meetings have been a bit unstructured lately in the last few months, and things change a lot, and public comment gets moved around, things like that. I do believe that instead of creating more problems, I believe that if we all understand what the Robert's rules are, that both the council will have a clear direction on how they are to conduct a meeting, and the public will also have a clear understanding of how the procedures work. So instead of having we'll kind of fly by the seat of our pants because that's what I want to do, we can have a formal structure. I would think it would eliminate the problem of, or not necessarily the problem, but the concerns that other citizens have of open meeting violations and things of that sort of thing. I believe that by formalizing something that is widely accepted in almost any place else that has public boards, and even private boards, you'll be doing yourselves and the public a favor. Thank you.
Hi, Jay Walsh, Newport. I think that the council has essentially been using a form of Robert's rules all these years. I haven't seen them deviate far from that. My only conflict I would see adopting it would be how it more than likely conflicts with our city charter. There's conditions in the city charter that would not dovetail with a formal establishment of Robert's rules. I think that as a general conduct of operation, it might be fine to use that as a framework, but not where it comes in conflict with our laws, actually, not just the city charter. It's a law of the state.
Yeah, I think we basically have been using form as a guideline since I was mayor, and in the last few meetings, it's probably been even more thoroughly followed. But if you're gonna formally adopt Robert Rules of Order as your procedure, it could affect public discussion, it could affect an awful lot of things, and what Ann said, it could bring up another reason for some frivolous little thing to have to go to the lawyer, and you guys have to spend another 2 hours dealing with. So maybe if you would change the word to as a guideline for our procedure, then you would still be using it, but it wouldn't be, you have to go exactly the way it says. Because if you do, I can see you spending a lot more time and us spending a lot more money. So I understand what you're getting at, but if you just use it as a guideline instead of formally adopting Robert's rules. Have you read them? Because it will limit an awful lot of public comment. It limits a lot of things that you might not want to limit now. So.
I just want to, Laurie Grimm, Newport. I just want to say ditto what Ann said. I'd be very concerned what putting this out in that manner could cause for the city. The fact is that on Amazon right now, the 2020 version, 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order is 816 pages. So the question that I have is the city going to hire a parliamentarian to sit here and ascribe at every meeting to everything we say and everything that's written?
So, the reason that you adopt Robert's Rules of Orders is kind of the mindset of good fences make good neighbors. And if you have clear boundaries and everybody knows what those boundaries are and functions within those boundaries, then there's less dispute. You really want to try to remove the subjectivity that might otherwise come to the table, because it's that subjectivity that could be construed to be, something of malicious intent or whatever the case might be, and you just want to get rid of that. So I absolutely believe that we should adopt Robert's Rules of Order as the organization section of the Rules of Procedure, because it would provide those boundaries, those well-established, lines that you need in order to have everything, unfold in an unbiased and equal way. Thank you.
I'm Pamela. I live in Newport. I come from the land of Robert's Rules. They've been in effect pretty much everywhere I worked before I came to this country. They've certainly been used in various boards that I've been on here. It's a structure that to me is fairly familiar. However, the idea of integrating it with what we have right now makes my hair stand on. That's a lot to integrate right now. And right now what I see happening here is everybody jumping because they're scared of putting a foot over the line and yet another threatening letter coming, yet another way of picking a hole in what's happening. It's not that I have an issue with Robert's Rules, but I really don't see how, right now, given the amount of work that you have to do with other things, that you're going to integrate it without somebody being able to jump all over it and send more threatening letters.
So how about a friendly amendment that says that we will adopt it as a reference? Especially since we haven't spoken to our attorneys about it.
It's gonna be a long night. I guess my intent was that we could then reflect or reference the attorneys and see how they could integrate it into what is already existing for rules and procedures.
So we want to change the friendly amendment to a friendlier amendment that says perhaps that we will adopt the rules under the advice of our city attorney.
Yeah, I'll make that friendly amendment.
What was it?
That we will adopt incorporating Robert's rules pending the advice of our city attorney. motion.
So we all vote yes on this. If our lawyers don't agree, then we're gonna have to come back and vote it again.
Open that discussion.
I don't know that we need to necessarily ask the permission of an attorney to have something as a guide to provide structure. Do we necessarily need to follow each and every 800 some odd pages of it? May not pertain to us, but it would be a good guide. And certainly, you know, if something seems out of whack, we could say, all right, well, how does this go along with Robert's rules? Are we following that guiding principle? So I'm not in favor of running it by lawyers and asking their permission to run our meetings the way we've been running them.
We're already running them. That I can think of, even under the previous regime with Mayor Manette. I don't think for 20 years we've been violating Robert's rules.
No,
So
but
why do we want to add just more stuff in here?
So,
I think it'll clarify some of the things.
Yeah, but if
You know,
one thing
public
doesn't,
comment or,
but if one thing conflicts with, just say, our rules and procedures for the meeting, then we're just subjecting ourselves to just some more frivolous crap going through the lawyers. So,
Yeah, I'm concerned, I haven't really looked at the charter to see how it comports with Robert rules. But if we send that assignment out to the attorneys, well, we could be creating, you know, a nice expense for ourselves for no reason. For them to integrate the two and come back with that evaluation, I mean, could be $1,000 later.
so what if we, like Kevin's suggesting, just make that our primary guide instead of formally putting, well, making our formal primary guide, but instead of formally rewording anything, just have that as a formality.
Well, you make the motion and I'll
Do I have to
ask for the
withdraw
vote.
the friendly amendment first?
Well,
well, we already
I think
have
it gets seconded.
a second, so he has to pull back his second,
Yeah.
so he can redo.
Kevin's gotta withdraw, and you gotta withdraw, and you gotta make a
I'll withdraw the second.
I withdraw the first. Make the friendly amendment to have the Robert's Rules of Order as their primary guide for rules and procedures for the City of Newport Council.
I have a motion to have Robert's Rules as the primary guide for the city of Newport. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have concern about primary guide. What does that mean? That the charter is nil and those other, these other rules that you have are nil? Or, you know, subservient to Robert's rules? Without really having gone through the 800, I haven't gone through the 800 pages. I wonder whether or not each one of the council members have gone through the 800 pages as updated to see what they actually say. And I am concerned about whether or not there's any limitation to our free speech or our input by having these rules adopted. So I think the word, that word is primary, is really problematic.
Isn't Robert's Rules of Order mentioned already in the charter?
That's what I said, sorry.
That's a guy.
As a guide.
Guys, understanding operating.
I'll just ask my question again. Are we gonna ask maybe Ms. Therian to be our parliamentarian? I mean, she already has a lot on her plate. Who's gonna sit and memorize all of that and so that we don't get into the trouble that we're in now?
Any other discussion? Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say
No.
no.
Madam Mayor, so it was 3-1?
No, it was 2-2.
Madam Mayor, I believe you're a tie-breaking vote.
I'm breaking it. I actually do have the right to vote as well.
You can vote to, you can vote to break or create a tie.
Could also vote.
And even 2-1, it can't go forward without a third vote, so.
So we have 2 and 1. I will definitely be vetoing that.
Noise
Hmm?
anyway. Noise anyway.
Yeah, I know, but I would be, is what I'm saying, would be vetoing.
Madam Mayor, may I have a roll call?
Sure.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for that, though.
Thank
It
you
was
for
a good
entertaining the
discussion.
conversation.
No, of course. Okay. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of November 6, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make that motion
I have a
to
mo-
approve the minutes of 6 November.
I have a motion to approve the minutes of 6 November 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Yes, I apologize, I didn't see your hand.
Oh, no,
You have a comment?
Yes, it doesn't list who the health inspector is in the minutes.
Because it has not been appointed. The person has not been appointed as of this point in time. I am, and I will be appointing someone.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. All those in favor of approving the minutes of 6 November, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it. The motion is carried. Okay, we're now going to open the floor to public comment for each agenda item. Members of the audience are reminded that members of the press are present and that these proceedings are being recorded for current and future broadcast over the city's cable television channel. Members of the audience are further reminded that Newport City Council meetings are for the purpose of allowing council members to conduct city business. City council meetings are the only time the city council discusses, deliberates, and decides upon city matters. City council meetings are held in public to promote transparency and accountability in government, but are distinct from public hearings or town meetings in that they are not meetings of the public. Members of the public shall be afforded a reasonable opportunity to express opinions about matters considered by the city council. To conduct orderly and efficient meetings, I kindly request the public's cooperation and compliance with the published guidelines when participating in the meeting, and I thank you. So we are now going to be moving to the next item on the agenda, which is comments by the public. When your name is called, please speak into the microphone. Do we have a microphone? Okay, great. Okay, I was checking on that one. You will state your name and residence or your affiliation. You will have 2 minutes for your comment. The first person, Ms. Bierling,
So should I go up to the podium now?
Yes.
please.
Okay. New protocol. Jennifer Bierling, resident Newport, Vermont. At the last meeting, Mr. Walsh stated that I mocked the First Amendment right to free speech and had violated my oath to uphold the Constitution. An objective person listening to my statements during the October 23rd meeting understands that I was complaining about Mr. Walsh's assignment of blame with Ms. Garrity, not with the exercise of the right of free speech. At the July 10th meeting, it was Mr. Wilson who made the decision as to where candidates could place their political signs. He stated, quote, "Let's go this way. We'll relook the policy, but if it's put out and Tom picks it up, it shouldn't have been there, I guess." Had it not been for Ms. Garrity's intervention, candidates would not have been able to put their signs up in the location in question. I would suggest that if Mr. Walsh wishes to vent his anger about the removal of the signs, he should properly direct it towards Councilman Wilson, who upheld the city's policy of removing them. Week after week, I have been defending against the city's violations of the Vermont statutes and the Vermont and United States constitutions. The law is sacred to me. I have paid a very dear price for so doing. I have been publicly admonished by the mayor in council meetings. The mayor has allowed her supporters to rant about me during meetings with an individual actually sticking their finger in my face. These supporters have undertaken a smear campaign against me on social media platforms on which the mayor routinely contributes. Everyone involved is missing the point. If the city stops violating the law, I will not need to defend it. The cause of the problem is not me. I also wanted to express my astonishment concerning the word from the mayor in the Newport Daily Express. The mayor went to great lengths to tout her accomplishments, but nowhere did she acknowledge the North Country Falcon football players in their D2 state championship victory. Moving forward, I would hope that the mayor would be less focused on herself and more focused on those that she purports to represent. With that said, I would like to publicly congratulate our Falcon boys on their incredible achievement of state champions. It was a great job, and you all should be proud. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Pons, have the floor.
It's gonna take a little longer than 2 minutes, so my wife signed up and she said I could take her 2 minutes. That's okay.
Okay. I like the families that share.
That's okay with her. That's still okay with you? All right. So, once again, even more so after that last statement, I am sick of the constant harassment of the mayor and the city council by Ms. Bierling. Tonight's open meeting law violation on the agenda is just another useless piece of garbage. Specifically, it seems that Ms. Bierling wanted an agenda item to read, dismissal of interim city manager. There was already an agenda item to authorize advertising for a city manager. This seems a logical way to protect the privacy of the interim city manager and to protect her from public humiliation. The council tried to protect her by simply stating they did not feel she could work collaboratively. What we knew at that point was negotiations had already broke off with the ICM. It appears that Ms. Bierling would prefer that the council states all their reasons for their decisions to the public. Once again, to protect the council, to protect her, the council chose humanely not to air them publicly, which I applaud them for. At the time, we already knew things were not going well for the interim city manager. We all knew the ICM strangely presented the council with a contract that was drafted by an attorney she had hired. She also presented a letter trying to remove the powers of the mayor by changing the intent of the charter and basically told the city council they didn't know what they were doing and they didn't know what their function was. I would have dismissed her on the spot just for that. Since then, we have heard in subsequent council meetings, if you've been paying attention, that the interim city manager had not prepared reports that were requested. She did not keep the city council informed of several important things. We also heard from our newly hired grant writer that the city had not kept up with current grants that were in progress. I assume that was part of the ICM's job. He also stated that the mayor saved us on that issue. Apparently that isn't enough for Ms. Bierling. She wants to keep this in the news, make the council specifically drag the ICM through the mud. How cruel. So further with Ms. Bierling, she continues to harass the council with petty open meeting law violations of public records requests. Since July 1st, she has cost the city taxpayers $7,500, this is approximate, $7,500 in legal costs for open meeting law violations and an additional $9,500 in public records expense. This does not include all the additional invoices for October. So this is just for 3 months. That is $17,000 in 3 months. It does not include time by the city staff to accommodate these ridiculous requests. The actual costs are most likely closer to $25,000 when you add the city staff's time. For 3 months. At this rate, she will cost us $100,000 for the year. She has pounded on executive session doors and harassed people in the hallways, myself included. Nobody wants Ms. Bierling doing this. I messaged her and asked her to stop long before. She sent me a long reply back that I did not know the history she had with the city. She told me that Mayor Manette and the previous city manager and the council repeatedly treated her badly. She said her prior dispute was handled poorly. My comment was they're all gone now and it was not an excuse to continue the battle. So it appears this is a vendetta at this point. It needs to stop. It disrupts city meetings. It shackles the council from doing real city business. And it annoys most all of us who attend every city meeting. Mrs. Bierling is a nerd, is a menace. I want two things. The city needs to find a legal way to stop this insanity. Talk to the lawyers, figure out a way to stop it, because it's harassment and it shouldn't be allowed. And the press, who have been mostly silent on this issue, need to report it so everyone knows what a pest Ms. Bierling is and what she is costing all of us taxpayers, especially the cost, because that's ridiculous. Please make these two things happen for the benefit of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Hi, my name is Pam Ladd, City of Newport, and once more, we're talking about Jennifer Bierling. That was really not what I wanted to talk about tonight, but now that we've had yet another introduction of something, Robert's Rules, and it's pretty clear that although Chris Vachon named it, Jennifer had been involved in that discussion, right? She was certainly expecting that. Anyway, that's irrelevant. We are, as a citizen, I feel like we are being held hostage. We are being held hostage to a lot of money that is bleeding out of this city for violations that make no sense. And I get I'm so devoted to the law, it's a sacred thing to me. But this is minutia, and this city has functioned perfectly well without having a violation for every time they breathed in the wrong spot. I don't know what the council can do about it. One of the things, a lot of people are talking on the streets. They watch the video and they say, why can't you stop her? Why can't you stop her? I don't have an answer to that because I don't know how to stop her. They say the responsibility is the council's, and I say, come and speak up, you have the option. And what's said is, oh, I don't want to be on her radar. She'll sue me if I say something. Well, that may or may not be true, but it's a concern. That's what Charlie just identified as harassment, fear of harassment. We're being bullied, and it's not okay. I have no idea what the city can do, but to be costing the city the amount of money that is happening is absolutely not okay. It's a waste of time. And it means that any suggestions for making communication easier, and Robert's Rules may do that, is something that, again, gets a lot of suspicion. Because what if it makes it worse? What if it's just one more way of putting a weapon in somebody else's hands? Okay.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Grant.
Laurie Grimm, City of Newport resident. I want to take an opportunity to say thank you to our Newport City Council, all of you, for making the last City Council meeting one of the best ones that I have been to in a very, very long time. You were cordial, you answered questions, you talked to people, you allowed discussions to happen without control. And it was a very long night. There were more than 20, I think, agenda items. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I appreciate the job that you're doing.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Walsh.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Jay Walsh, City of Newport resident. I have to agree with Mr. Pronto and Ms. Lads, especially with the financial costs that Ms. Bierling is bringing upon the city. None of this badgering of the council is helping the city, and in fact, it is costing the city and all of its taxpayer-paying residents financially. I find it irresponsible and does nothing to address the real issues of the city or move the city forward in any way. The recent termination of the interim city manager was not, as Ms. Bierling put it, came as a complete surprise, as it was no surprise. Many have spoken to their concerns of the interim city manager's actions and her failures in several of the recent city council meetings. A decision to fire the interim city manager, I believe, was prompted by several significant breaches of their responsibility. These violations include supervisor intimidation, which is a HR breach of employees' rights, a failure to apprise the council of the new fire chief's hiring plans, interference with financial negotiations between Coventry and the Newport ambulance service, the issuance of a letter posted along the official council agenda without approval, a communication directed at both the council and the citizens in Newport condemning local laws, impugning the actions and governance of the council, and questioning the authority of the mayor. The other actions jeopardize critical grants earmarked for the Newport City Downtown Development Wayfair signs and the Newport City Causeway project, followed by the removal of campaign signs for a citywide special election. And all of these actions, not over the course of years, or even the course of a year, but over the course of a few months, all raise concerns about the ICM's governance and qualifications. It is disheartening to me to witness these actions, and I find it difficult to comprehend how anyone with a genuine interest in the welfare of Newport and its citizens could defend such irresponsibility. This defense, particularly when voiced by former and current elected officials, only adds to my perplexity. I urge the current city councilman Mr. Vachon and Mr. Charbonneau to convey to us how, with the knowledge of these failures by the interim city manager, they can justify supporting someone who is so ill-qualified for the position of Newport city manager. Newport needs a city manager with the education, experience, proven track record to get the city out of the big hole and the mediocre and oppressive management that we have suffered over the past 10 years. I hope after tonight we can put this nonsense and expense to the city behind us and get on with the real issues facing Newport. Thank you.
I have something to say. The Vermont Open Meeting Law ensures the right of Vermonters to access proceedings of public bodies, such as the Newport City Council, when decisions affecting residents are being deliberated and voted upon. The city and its council are mindful of their obligations to conduct its business transparently, and we rely on the limited exceptions to the open meeting law only when appropriate and necessary to protect countervailing interests recognized by statute. Likewise, the Vermont Public Records Act gives our residents the right to ask for the production of records of the city, subject again to a number of limited exceptions outlined in the statutes. Residents are allowed, if they are denied production of certain records, to appeal the denial and the stated basis for the denial. As for the open meeting laws, citizens may pursue a complaint if they believe that an open meeting law violation has occurred. The council embraces these statutes and the process involved in ensuring citizens' access to the workings of our government. Of course, compliance with these laws and the frequent need to secure the assistance of our attorneys can come at a significant cost to taxpayers. Most times that cost is minimal. Occasionally, however, the cost can be run up when we have to go to court or where there are repeated and excessive requests or complaints by individual taxpayers. We have been dealing with this situation involving one individual resident who has just in 2023 filed with the city 12 open meeting law complaints and who has made it a regular practice to seek documents supporting even the most mundane of actions by the city council 10 times in 2023 alone. The legal fees as expressed associated with responding to this one Newport resident's open meeting law complaints from July through October alone are estimated at $7,500. The Public Record Act's requests are also estimated to have cost the city approximately $9,500 in that same period. These charges are only estimates since the final invoices for October have not yet been submitted. In addition, these charges do not include the time spent by city staff and others to accommodate these requests. Almost each of the open meeting law complaints made by this resident have been deemed by the city and its attorneys to lack merit. And while records have been compiled and produced to this resident on numerous occasions in response to Public Records Act requests, the resident's activities appear, to me at least, to have been driven by a particular resident's sense of curiosity and personal interest in learning just about every detail of city management and business entrusted by the voters to our city officials. Don't get me wrong, every resident has the right to invoke these statutes. But the city has a right to, under the law, to resist inappropriate use of these laws in the interest of protecting private interests involving employees, to ensure that contracts are fairly and favorably negotiated for the benefit of the city, and that our privileged and confidential communications with our lawyers are not lost. Repeated record demands and serial open meeting law complaints come at a certain cost to all of us. And so I encourage our residents to invoke these laws judiciously, mindful of the costs in manpower and legal fees. I'm not hearing that Newport has suffered open meeting law violations over the years, nor have I heard that there is a practice of hiding public documents. I think then that it's just neighborly to think twice about putting the city to this cost and burden, largely out of a sense of personal curiosity. My fellow council members have been elected by the majority of the residents of Newport City. They are here diligently doing their jobs. They are public officials, and as such, they have to listen to criticism, whether constructive or just belittling and negatively addressed. As such, the choice to take the higher road and ignore accusations and other attacks on their integrity, even though most probably the source is not reliable, or is just making statements out of context, or perhaps because someone else wants or is planning to run for the position. Valuable city business and council meeting time should not be interfered with for apparent personal agendas. All of you and my fellow council members have other responsibilities apart from those held in your professional and your elected capacities. As I noted, in elected capacities, officials may be stifled in their responses and prefer to deal with such outbursts and published propaganda in a better, more appropriate fashion for the betterment of the city. Such lack of response by my council members does not mean that these accusatory statements are in any way accurate. In this regard, if public innuendos or other claimed legal positions are proffered by those who are attorneys, skepticism should be applied by this audience, as those attorneys making such public comments may not even be knowledgeable or have legal experience or expertise in the field of law that they are posturing or grandstanding on. The city of Newport has retained attorneys who have municipality experience, knowledge, and are long-standing professionals in the area of municipality legal matters. It should also be noted that the Vermont and American Bar Associations usually allow attorneys to say whatever they want in pleadings, but when attorneys publish or make false statements to the tribunal or the press, there is a different code of conduct that governs, that is specific to truthfulness. As Newport City Mayor, I am proud to be a member of this council, working along with my fellow elected officials, and I respect you all as the residents. I thank you all, and I thank them all for their hard work and what they are doing, and the city employees, and for the entire city of Newport. Now we're going to move on to the next agenda.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
when you said 2023, is that the calendar year or is that the fiscal year?
No, it's just for the calendar.
Okay.
Sorry, my apologies. Okay, here we go. Next item, response to open meeting law violation allegation from Jennifer Burling dated November 3, 2023.
Madam Mayor, this is a new issue.
I move that the council, ask for a motion to deny the alleged open meeting law violation from Ms. Burling dated November 3, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to move that the council deny the alleged open meeting law violation from Ms. Burling dated November 3, 2023. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment? Back to the council. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. The November 3rd allegation of an open meeting law violation is denied because there is unambiguous statutory authority in the open meeting law 1 VSA 312 D3A authorizing the council to add or remove items from the agenda as the first act of business at the meeting, which is what occurred at our October 23rd meeting. Next item. Water tower update and authorization to go out to bid. Wayne Elliott with an anticipated. Thank you, Mr. Elliott, for your patience.
Becky's got a presentation she's going to show up here. Good. So, good evening. My name is Wayne Elliott. So this is a kind of an abbreviated overview of the presentation we did at the bond vote back in February 2021. Prior to that, with a few updates. Becky, next slide, please. So just a quick, so this water system improvements projects included 3 major items. The first one was the Palin Hill Reservoir cover and liner replacement, which has been completed. The second is the what we're calling the East Side Water Storage Tank. And the last one is to install the remaining water meters in the city. So I can just jump into the next slide. So the next one, some of this is just a little bit of background. There's a lot of new people here, just a kind of an overview of how you got here. The next slide just shows the history of the Derby Service Road area. Back in '99, there was a new water main that was constructed, and it was to really just serve those non-residential commercial properties. The challenge with that, though, is the city from the Palin Hill Reservoir couldn't provide adequate water and pressure supply up there. So an arrangement was made with the Village of Derby Center. There's an interlocal agreement that was put together. So the Village of Derby Center has served been the primary water supplier to this area, for the last 23, 24 plus years. Then in 2006, the village modified their water rates to include a reserve water allocation fee. 2007, the city, this was actually a regulatory requirement, installed 2 new wells to meet to remove arsenic and built a new water treatment plant. Can't believe that's 16 years ago already, so just makes me feel my age. So then in 2007 to 2014, there was litigation between the city and the village over the fees charged, and that went back and forth. Finally took to 2017, there was a bond vote on a similar project, didn't pass, There was a separation agreement that was negotiated with the village, and the city agreed to pay $50,000 to settle, and that's where it kind of initiated the city looking at other options where they could kind of control their destiny and fee structure and everything else moving forward. Got the Palin Hill Reservoir. So I remember walking up the hill many years ago. That was built in the 1960s. Kind of unique to Vermont. It was an open top reservoir. A floating cover was added later on, and that was really to protect the water quality, you know, as the regulatory requirements changed. Then in late 1999, the floating cover had to be replaced because of the age. And then in 2014, the state was kind of doing their annual inspection, raised concerns about the age of the cover and said, okay, the city needs, it's going to be 20 years, the city needs to plan for replacement. And then there was another inspection done in 2019 that said, hey, you know, this has reached the end of its useful life, and the city's, you know, needs to replace this cover, you know, as soon as possible. So, you know, that's what one of the projects here, improvements here, that kind of initiated the bond vote. Just a picture of the cover. You can see it's an open reservoir, has a synthetic liner, and again, that's to really to protect the water quality of the treated water that's in there. So 4 things, a little bit about the project need for the east side storage tank. Again, Village at Derby Center has supplied the water here for the last roughly 24 years. There were concerns about the allocation. You know, what Village at Derby Center was committing to this area, it's a non-residential area, commercial area, great potential for some future development, job creation up there. So the city was concerned that they'd have, at some point, wouldn't be able to get additional allocation again. So it's, again, part of the city being able to control its destiny moving forward. The other thing with disconnecting too is the Village at Derby Center was billing the city for the water used. So the city isn't able to really control the water rates or fully control the water rates up there like they wanted to. So that was, again, the rate setting. The third one, there were concerns about the village being able to provide reliable fire protection. Obviously, that's a commercial, non-residential, some pretty large buildings, so that's always a concern from a public safety standpoint. Then the fourth one, by doing these improvements, the city wanted to disconnect from the Village of Derby Center. They would be able to provide both the domestic and accounting for also future growth up there, and also to provide the reliable fire protection, and that again really allows the city to control things moving forward. The challenge with the Palin Hill Reservoir is it's too low, which initiated this way back, 20 plus years ago. They cannot provide adequate domestic and fire flow without significant pumping or building some type of elevated storage tank up there, as you'll see. So this goes way back to the initial study, but there were kind of 3 locations looked at for an elevated storage tank, because that's really one of the more cost-effective long-term ways to serve that area, to provide adequate pressure both, and then supply domestic and fire flow. 3 sites looked. Those are just across the street from the Walmart, along the city of Newport border, and also the town of Derby. The site number 3, which you can see up there, which is on the East Main Equity property adjacent to the Velco. That was really the preferred site. The access was good. One of the primary benefits of that site is located in the city of Newport. So again, if we looked at the other 2 sites, that created some other permitting issues with having to work through the town of Derby. So again, being in the city, gave them control of things from a permitting moving forward. So this just gives you an idea of kind of what the proposed project is again. So we're calling this contract number 2. It's kind of primarily we're here tonight for, this has been the work now for about 2.5 years. You can see in the lower left-hand corner, there's an example of what the elevated storage tank is. I got a couple other photos of that. And then you can see in the right-hand side there, that's actually the Derby Road to the right. So we need to bring a new 12-inch water line in to serve the tank. And you can see the tank is going in the corner of the East Main Equities property adjacent to the Velco. So that tank, again, because of elevation, the water sits up high. That's gonna maintain adequate pressure in there, but we do have to pump the water from the Palin Hill Reservoir to get it up to this tank. So that project includes both the booster pump station at the Palin Hill Reservoir and also this elevated tank and the associated water piping to get it back to the existing water pipe that's on Derby Road. So one of the third parts of this project, which hasn't been touched as of yet, you know, tonight again, the priority is the water storage tank and the booster pump station. We'll kind of review quickly about the benefits of water metering. City's a little bit unique in that not everybody's metered. Water metering is not required. There's a lot of great benefits, a lot of good reasons why you should meter your water. It's a bit challenging from a billing kind of standpoint to have some people metered and some people not. So a few things with that is it makes it hard to create an equitable water, you know, billing structure for that, because some people are just billed a flat rate, irregardless of what they're using. So that creates a few things. Some people are probably paying more than they should. Some people are probably using more than what they're paying for. It also doesn't promote conservation either, because if you're just paying X, it's like it doesn't matter what I use, I'm not going to be able to control my bills. So by getting everybody metered, both the residential and non-residential customers, it takes a while to get to a common kind of equitable rate structure, but everybody's off the same rate structure. Either everybody's billed for what they're using on a usage side, or there's a base rate and a fixed fee plus the usage. And that's the fair equitable, but everybody's got to be metered for that to happen. That also is the best way to promote conservation, which we all agree. You know, we want to promote good water conservation and not use any more than we have to, because that's not a finite resource. There's a cost associated with pulling it out of the ground, pumping it out of the ground, treating it to remove the arsenic, and then, you know, getting that into your distribution system. So the other thing too, which has kind of been an interesting twist of this too, is if you don't have everybody metered, it eliminates the city from pursuing certain funding opportunities. So USDA Rural Development is a great funding resource, federal resource. We use it on many of our projects. The city is located in the REAP zone up here, so you qualify for increased grant funding on that, but everybody's got to be metered for you to be able to qualify or use USDA. So by getting everybody metered, it opens up the city for additional grant funding sources for, you know, future public infrastructure projects. So just another quick overview of the project here. So first one we're calling Contract 1, that's the new liner and floating cover for Palin Hill. Again, that was completed. Contract number 2, we're talking about the new elevated storage tank and the booster pump. That's really the east side storage. And then the third one is getting the rest of the, there's about 765 properties that still need water meters. So that's the last and third piece of this project. So just an overview of the bond vote. So that was passed back on March 3rd, 2021. Estimated construction cost was about $3.9 million. Bond vote amount, total project cost was just under $5 million. We are in the process of updating the construction costs for the contract 2 for the storage tank booster pump station. I will say that's gone up, as we all know, over the last 3 years. You know, we've gone through COVID, there's supply chain issues, you know, equipment and all that, so we're in the process of updating that, but we're expecting that to go up. A little bit about where we've been. You know, the bond vote passed in March of 21. We kind of went through COVID. That definitely slowed these projects up somewhat. After the bond vote passed, we spent a lot of time in the study phase, and I think we probably went through about 6 or 9 months. We were really trying to shake the trees and get the best funding package for the city. There was a lot of time spent with the state drinking water program. That's something that we commonly use. You know, they funded the water treatment plant upgrade, you know, back several years ago. The issue they had is this type of project they didn't consider eligible for their funding. You know, they're really focused on addressing water quality issues, emerging contaminants, and those kind of things. So building the water line, the booster pumping to serve kind of more of a non-residential commercial, they didn't really see that fit their funding priority program. So that was dropped and not pursued. Also, a lot of discussion, because water meters were part of this, is that, with USDA rural development, because they can provide, significant grant dollars, they actually couldn't support the selection of the water tower as an alternative. They go through a pretty comprehensive analysis, looking at the long-term life cycle costs. They didn't agree that the city should disconnect from the Village of Derby Center, so from that perspective, they kind of declined and wouldn't consider it eligible. They could fund the water meters, and that would be fine. One of the challenges the city has is your water rates are relatively low compared to a lot of other communities. So that doesn't help, from the standpoint of acquiring grant funds for some of these projects. The city's been very aggressive about looking for some other funding opportunities. The local ARPA funds were committed to this water project, that's about $1.3 million. And then more recently, the state has been great about pushing more of the state ARPA funds out to these types of projects. So the city was able to acquire a community recovery and revitalization program grant through the Agency of Commerce. The amount of $997,000, that's 100% grant. Again, that's state ARPA funds. And the last piece of that will either be, through the municipal bond bank or a local bank, and we'll need to finalize those amounts that are going to be needed for the contract to prior to the funding. Very quick update on the Palin Hill Reservoir. Permit was obtained on that for August of 2022, went out to bid. The work really didn't get completed until this year. Good news, it came in under budget. The bid price was about $365,000. Everything all in came in a little bit under $400,000. The city used their local ARPA funds to pay for the engineering and the construction related. Construction was completed in July of 2023. Bit of a challenge for the city logistically, because that was taken offline. Had to rely on the Village of Derby Center to provide the water, the fire flow protection during that interim process. I know with Tom's perspective, that was a challenge with pressure and everything to make that happen. Just a quick overview. I know this is a little hard to read. Site plan, so this is the water tower, the contract number 2. If you're looking kind of midway, you can see the Derby Road kind of heading west to east. You can see the water storage tank. In the far left-hand side, you can see the Palin Hill Reservoir. And that's where the booster pump station, so that project includes those 2 components. This is the design drawing of the new water storage tank, just to give you an idea of what it looks like. Again, we have to elevate the water so we can maintain minimum pressure to this service area. That's going to provide both the domestic and the fire flow. It's going to have a total volume of 210,000 gallons. It's going to be about 100 feet high. So the water is all the way up to about 70 feet. So it starts from there up. And the height of the water in there is going to be about 27 feet. We need to have that again to maintain minimum pressure. This is a bunch of these over in the New York area, again, just to show you kind of a view of what the tank's going to look like. I don't remember what the exact height of this, but again, for the Newport, about 100 feet from the ground to the very top of the tank cover. So a little bit on the schedule. We've been pretty much working the majority this year on permits. Within the last couple of weeks, those were issued. Permitting is going slow, Pre-COVID, we probably could have turned that around in 3 or 4 months. Now it's 8 or 9 months. So, we were in design last year. There was some back and forth on getting the land acquisition easements that had to all kind of be nailed in before we could start the permit. So we started the permit process early this year. And like I said, we just barely had all the permits issued. The last one was the Act 250 permit. I do have a very brief update on the land acquisition. The city, bear with me, I'm just going to read this to you very quickly. The city has tentative agreements with all affected landowners. We will soon be reaching out to them and their attorneys for final approval of draft deeds, related documents, and compensation. The project team expects to seek approval of warrants for the compensation in mid-December, early January, so the council should expect to see that shortly. As far as the water tower site is concerned, the city has an option to purchase the water tower parcel and associated access easement from East Main Equities. That runs until December 31st, 2024, and the city plans to acquire the site pursuant to the option prior to commencement of construction. Once all permits become final and appealable in the next couple of weeks, the city will make a second option payment to East Main Equity so it can remove the building at 1678 East Main Street before the final closing on the purchase of the tower site. Expect to close on the purchase of the tower site in late winter, early spring. So the plan schedule-wise here, we're looking to get concurrence with setting a bid date and advertising, tentatively mid-December. Said permitting's all wrapped up, they're just in the appeal period, but they've been issued. Open bids have at least a 30-day bid period, open bids of January of next year, award in March of next year, start construction in April. Again, with supply chain issues, we're trying to be a little conservative. Everything may not be complete and fully functional until spring of 2025. That's just where we are now. It's taking longer. Read about the supply chain, pumps, electrical components, stuff. So things are just taking longer now than they did in the past. Okay. Any questions?
Yes, Ms. Beal.
Mr. Elliott, back, when you guys had your meeting, it was actually a Zoom meeting, I think. And we were talking about the cost of how this is gonna trickle down to the taxpayers. At that point in time, I think the council discussed, maybe even voted, that it was gonna be a $10 flat rate to, add to the bill. Does anybody have any information as to, but before Laura Dogan left, she had bumped that up to $20 a quarter with no explanation as to why. And I just don't know if these added expenses now with the costs associated with, higher inflation and supply chain issues, et cetera, like what is it trickling down to the taxpayers per quarter?
I don't have an updated answer on that. That's something we're gonna have to work with Jim and Tom and Becky on getting the funding updated. We're gonna have to see, when the loan payments are gonna start, kind of revisit those numbers here. And of course, the funding package has changed over what was expected here 3 or 4 years ago.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 2 questions, if I may. Ms. Elliott said it's gonna, the permit process has been longer since pre-COVID. I'm wondering why that is, and how many properties are you looking to get easements from?
I think, I don't know, the permitting is what it is. I'm not sure that I owe any explanation beyond that. It's taking longer. Bunch of, staffing, experience of state staffing, it's just taking longer than it did pre-COVID, so it's kind of what we're dealing with today than we were previously 3 or 4 years ago.
I'm thinking the backflow was there too. Like with the permitting, there was a huge backflow and
Yeah.
because of COVID too.
Show backlog?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the second question.
I think regarding that question, I read the response from the attorney, and that's fully clarifies, I guess, the status of the easements and land acquisition for the city.
The estimate that you give of how much this is going to cost us, I know you haven't gone out to bid yet, but does that include the installation of the water meters as well, or is that with the tank?
The $5 million bond authorization included all 3 of those projects.
I know, but how much, but we now have about 1.2 million at least coming from, I think, an ARPA grant.
Yep.
So how much do you, and the cover's already been paid for, so how much do you estimate that the tower will cost us and how much the meters will cost us?
We're in the process of updating, but I can tell you the construction cost for the meters as part of the original bond vote was about $1 million. And the tank construction cost back at the bond vote was about 2.5 million. We're updating that, so again, I would expect that to be, you know, somewhat higher than that. It's probably gonna be at least over 3 million, you know, based on where we're at with inflation and everything else. But again, we're just getting updated tank costs and equipment costs on that, but that will give you an idea relative to where we were, you know, 3 years ago for the bond vote.
So the bond would cover it and may be excessive.
Yeah, well, the city's gotta stick, irregardless of how this goes, they can't borrow more than the bond authorization. And they've been good about, you know, committing the local ARPA funds, you know, which is a significant 400,000 of that was put towards the Palin Hill Reservoir cover, which came in, so there's roughly 800,000 left to put towards a tank. And, you know, the $1 million, from Agency of Commerce wasn't anticipated, so that's 100% grant money too. So that's hoping that's gonna help alleviate, you know, maybe some of the overages here, because that wasn't anticipated, you know, back with the original bond vote, so. I mean, ultimately, it's a city decision to be very clear, you know, they've got a bond authorization, but as we go through here, I was hoping to have updated numbers tonight, but we've been trying to just move this along. We just barely got the permits. You know, the city obviously has to approve going to bid. Once we go through the bid process, you know, we open the bids and see where we're at. We do a comprehensive bid analysis. We'll come back to you with the bid results, and then ultimately the city's gotta approve the award of the contract as you move forward anyways.
Mr. Elliott, a couple of questions. It sounded like you said that the city doesn't currently own the land
Which one, for the tank?
for the tank.
They have an option agreement.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you know how many acres that is?
It's 100 by 100.
Yeah, it was about 1,000 square feet roughly.
Oh, so really small.
Yeah, it is, yeah. And then there's a construction easement that's needed from the adjacent Velco property, because there's material staging and a crane and those kind of things to be able to construct the tank, so.
Right, and so is the road to it, is it right away included in that acreage?
That's, I believe, was a permanent easement. You can actually see that, I know, one of the drawings, you probably couldn't see that, but the one that showed the water line coming in from Derby Road did show the easement on there, so,
Okay.
yes.
So it's under a number of acres?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes.
I'm curious about the water meter thing. Have we not got all, the city up all on water meters because we haven't been able to get the supplies, the people haven't
Well, I can,
done it? I mean, I'm just curious if that was a holdup. I had one put in, it was great, took 15 minutes and they're out of there, you know, so.
Tom can add to that. So what was unique here is the city staff has been doing the installation of the water meters.
Yeah.
And they've been doing it as they had people, the minute you contract it out to somebody, they've gotta be a licensed plumber. And I would say they probably did the easier ones and kind of the low-hanging fruit, so the ones that are left aren't quite as easy. You know, there's things like sometimes, you know, you've got some of the bigger commercial buildings that need to be done, which are pretty more detailed, larger unit. And then you may have some properties where you actually have to do some excavation, put a structure in because maybe they don't have a heater. So, you know, I think this was to really help.
There was a holdup because of supply.
No, it isn't. It's just
Yeah.
they, you know, they have limited time and staff, and that's part why that was put in here, you know, 3 years ago, is so there was a means to help finish it up because they just had limited time and resources to do that, so. Anything to add there, Tom, or?
No, you pretty much summed it up.
Any questions from the council, or can I have a motion that, move that the council issue the request for proposals for the water tower project?
So the operation to go out to bid. And I move to authorize to go out to bid for the site of water system improvements.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Any further comment? Any discussion, council? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried.
Great.
Thank you, Mr.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
can you, if it's briefly explain what that means exactly?
Yeah, it means that they can send out the proposals for the bids.
The contractor.
Okay, then, next item.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Back in January with some good results.
Yeah, okay. Council with this. The next item on the agenda is the grandstand update. And we're going to hear a little bit from our grandstand committee and possibly our controller, Ms. Terrian. Okay, so are we going to talk, you're going to talk to me about the grandstand update versus the Freeman bit, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ready, set, go. You get to hear from you twice today.
Well, thank you. Bear with me. I'm getting over a bout of bronchitis. So have to bear with my voice.
Take your time, please.
Like everybody. That's why we're headed out of here.
And we're all going with you.
Well, the president of our committee is in Florida, so he's enjoying the warm weather. So he asked me to do the presentation tonight. Becky, if you want to go to the next slide. Basically, our committee was formed out of a group of dedicated individuals who wanted to see a piece of Newport history preserved. We formed the 501c3, received their status from the IRS. These are the committee members that we have on our committee, made up of various individuals who are dedicated to the project. We'll go to the next slide. Since a lot of people don't know some of the history, I did a lot of it. I'm the only non-athlete on the committee. Everyone else on the committee was an athlete. I'm more the historian aspect of the grandstand. So in September 29, the city decided to look at making Gardner Park, creating Gardner Park. And the thing in the Newport paper was a discussion about filling in the mosquito-ridden swamp to create a park and playground. Something that wouldn't certainly happen today. Back in 1929, the original plans in August were to have baseball fields, tennis courts, football fields surrounded by a track and a playground. And then in September 1934, the city actually received a grant. Part of the, they called it at that time the Vermont Emergency Relief Administration, VERA, which was part of the New Deal. And it was for 12, the total of the grant was about $9,500, and the city put in about $3,500. Having that grant actually allowed, as my research showed, 40 men to get work during the Depression. And it involved 2 shifts of the men bringing fill to the park. And the project in 1935, as the newspaper reported, it was quickly taking shape, the Gardner Park. At that time, 50 men and 6 trucks were hauling in fill. The Depression is solving the problem as 50 men are now supporting their families through the WPA project. So the whole park initiated through the Franklin Roosevelt's work project, which is good. In 1939, Mayor Winston Prouty announced the construction of the grandstand. It was to accommodate 700 people and have showers and dressing rooms under the seats. It was to be a wooden structure, 96 feet by 25 feet, and would sit on cement piers. And back then, I think they were pretty forward thinking, because they built it high enough that the structure has survived all the floods over time. And I forgot to include a photo of this year's flooding. I had a friend who took drone images, and it showed the water basically flowing around the grandstand but not bothering it. And so, in the 1940s, the grandstand in Gardner Park area was home to the Newport Frontiers, which was a semi-pro baseball team that played all over New England. And until 1968, it was the home field for the Newport High School baseball and football teams. Mr. Johnson remembers that.
I certainly do.
And then until the mid-70s, home field for Sacred Heart baseball and soccer teams. And then the last big event that was held was in 2002 and also 2004, where Newport hosted the New England Regional Babe Ruth Tournament. That was the last big event held at the grandstand. So just the current status of what we have accomplished as a committee on behalf of the city. In 2021, we contacted Horizon Engineering, who did the elevation study, which we knew would be required by the state and FEMA. And they basically said that only one corner would probably have to be raised a little bit to meet the FEMA requirements for the floodplain. In 2022, we commissioned an structural engineering study, which our committee raised all the funds to pay for. This firm that we had hired, Stevens and Associates, they've been working with another committee in Brattleboro because they're trying to save their grandstand. And so they came in and did a complete analysis of the structure. And they determined that it was sound and it should be restored. And it was one of the only wooden grandstands left in the state of Vermont. A lot of other grandstands have had modifications by having a lot of steel and cement added to boost their stability, where this is the only true wooden one left. In 2023, this year, I know some of the initial paperwork was submitted to HUD for the earmark. I know the archaeological study, which was done in 2014, was one of the requirements. The city had actually had it commissioned way back, so that went for this project. The 106 historical report information that the city had already done was submitted. And then I know the EPA environmental study was submitted, and I believe the only thing we're waiting for is the corrective action plan, which I believe is in a comment period right now, so it can't be submitted to HUD. But I know at a presentation at a past council meeting, the representative from the EPA basically said, as long as at the grandstand we don't go below 18 inches and disturb the soils, there's no environmental concerns as far as that. And then this year, in May, the Vermont Advisory Council on Historic Preservation voted to add the grandstand to the State Register of Historic Places. That was a 6-month process, but we got that completed. Can go to the next slide. So far, just a little bit of what our committee has raised towards the project. Just to let everyone know, it has not cost the city any money. We have raised all the funds so far. We've had a lot of private donations. The initial key donation for our project was Rotary, the Newport Rotary Club. They gave us $5,000 initially, and that was the key catalyst for the fundraising. We had donations in memory of Newport residents. We had successful fundraisers. In the fall of 2022, on behalf of the council, gave authorization for the grandstand committee to submit the earmark request to then Congressman Welch. I can remember the council approved it, and then 5 minutes before it was due, I was hit the submit button late at night. And in the spring, the city was notified of that $500,000 award of the HUD, of the earmark funds, which is going to be administered to HUD. Throughout the process, Ben Doyle, who's with Historic Preservation Trust of Vermont, had been in contact with our committee because he saw the uniqueness of the project. And so in June, he asked me to submit documentation because they were picking this project as one of their 10 projects to submit to the Freeman Foundation. And so I basically had probably an hour to get everything organized and sent to him. And as we know, you're going to see next agenda item, the city was awarded $100,000 from the Freeman Foundation towards the grandstand, which was the maximum amount that they allow for that type of grant. when I submitted it from talking with Ben, I figured, well, we might see 25,000, but for the 100,000, I think it shows the merit of the project in preserving some of the history of not only Newport, but the state of Vermont. And so our committee is continuing to do fundraising. We know that cost, because when the structural analysis was completed, they gave an estimate of 500,000, but we know that was 2 years ago. Costs with everything have gone up, and so this 100,000 will go a long way, but our committee is still raising funds. Excuse me. Raising funds for the project. And so some of our future goals is we want to just continue to promote, work with the city to promote future uses for the baseball field and grandstand. Because the restoration project, we're focusing on the grandstand, but we also want to make that a top-notch softball, baseball field, because it'll be just another feather in the cap for all the regional tournaments and state tournaments that come to Newport. So we want to continue to work on that. There's a lot of other activities. You know, people think, well, it's just baseball, but it's like some of the lists we have here: concerts, movies, old timers baseball, family day activities, 4th of July events. And so that's just a quick 5-minute, well, a little more than 5 minutes, but a quick update on where we've come from and where we're heading.
No, but good stuff. Really good stuff. Any questions?
Yeah, any idea what anticipated completion date might look like, or?
Well, we were waiting, HUD was requiring the corrective action plan.
And we've been talking to them, so.
Yeah, that I do know, that's one thing, then from there, it basically will go to the next step, which I believe, with Preservation Trust, any documents they have approved, they're actually stricter than HUD, as far as historical goes. So like any type of bidding documents for the project, will have to go to Preservation Trust. Like I need to send them, I had made a note, I need to send them a copy of the structural analysis, just so that they have it. So the timeline is kind of in the air right now. I'd love to see where we could go.
But we should definitely talk, because I know Rebecca's been talking with them, and so we should, the committee should
Have a
meet
committee
again,
meeting,
so
yeah.
we can make sure that nothing gets dropped
Nothing
anywhere.
gets dropped, right. And so there's really no firm timeline.
One other thing, now that it's historical, does that open you up to availability for more grants? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Yes,
Probably, right?
yes.
Yes.
I know,
I want to
Becky,
thank Roger for showing up.
yeah, Roger's there. Becky did contact me, and she was able to send off a document for the state official form that they designating it, so. Roger, did I cover everything? Like, probably didn't.
I think you did. We're really excited to help analyze the economic recreational development of the park. It has a very rich history, and we want to keep going. And I just, on behalf of the committee, I think we need to thank the city council for the support for the rest from day one. They've been there with us 100%. And we appreciate their help. So we're looking forward to getting back the park going. What you can hold there is a little limited by your next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't get too comfortable. Okay. Next item. The Freeman Foundation grant acceptance with an anticipated vote. Ready? Can I have a motion that the council accept the Freeman Foundation grant?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion, the council accept the Freeman Foundation grant. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Any comment? Any discussion? Oh, this is easy. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Chris.
Madam Mayor, may I have a copy of the application, or is it on the website? And also, I would like to have a copy of Mr. Minette's PowerPoint.
I can send that to you.
Look at this.
Thank you.
We're learning. It's like, come in, bring a copy for Chris. And the application, is the application up on?
That
This is
paperwork
gonna
is
be,
on.
so once I sign this, we should,
So it'll be available on the
Yeah.
website tomorrow?
Well, there is the unsigned version online.
okay. I'm in all this and sign this after. Don't let me leave it. Congratulations. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the VOREC proposal presentation from NCDT, Mr. Rick Alfred Chase. It's all good stuff coming in here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Council. We'll just wait a moment until we're loaded up here. So I wanted to just take a moment this evening to provide the council with some background about a grant proposal, a collaborative grant proposal that we're working on right now that I expect you all will be hearing about, and I wanted you all to kind of be aware. It's a pretty complicated proposal so that you can answer questions about it when they come up. And I think there are at least some oblique parts of this proposal that may actually come back to the council in the next few weeks. So this is all, consider this deep background. We're not looking for any kind of action tonight. So when I arrived in this position just over 2 years ago now, my very first meeting with Laura Dolgan and Mike Welch, they said to me, the primary issue that we're working on at this point is to live into the goal of making Newport the heart of the four-season outdoor recreation economy in the northern NEK. So over the last couple of years, we've kind of fine-tuned that and crafted it to look a little bit like what you see there following. So first of all, branding and promoting Newport and the surrounding area as a year-round go-to location for outdoor rec. But secondly, doing that in a way that absolutely commits to stewarding our natural resources and the character of our community. What we're working at here is trying to make sure that whatever we build that attracts other people to come here is built on the fabric of the community that has been here for a very long time. The third area was assuring that the growth of the outdoor rec economy actually translates into tangible economic benefits for our residents and our businesses. It shouldn't be something that's fleeting where the money comes in, gets dropped, or and then folks disappear. And then finally, building a collaborative spirit in which all of us work together to make Newport that great place to live, work, and play that we've been repeating as a mantra over the last several years. So there's a remarkable opportunity before us right now. VOREC is the Vermont Outdoor Recreation Economy Collaborative. It's operated or managed by the Vermont Forest Parks and Recreation Department. Right now, in the current round of funding through VOREC, there is a total of $6 million available, and the managers of that proposal process have gone out of their way to encourage bold and collaborative initiatives. And the last VOREC grant, just so you all know, that came to Newport was 2000, somebody else might have to help me, 18, 17, somewhere back in there. And it was to help with what was the phase 2 of what became the Prouty Bluffside Farm Bridge Connector. So that was the last time we had a major grant from VOREC here. So the idea that we're working on, these grants, the proposals and the opening for bid for proposals was announced early October, something like the 7th or 8th of October. The deadline is December 10th, so it was a very short turnaround. And several of us began dreaming pretty quickly of what it might look like to put together a collaboration between a wide variety of organizations that are already committed to outdoor recreation in the area, so that we could collectively put in a major grant proposal instead of piecemealing and having maybe half a dozen of us or 3 of us or whatever apply individually for smaller grants. We thought it would be strong if we put a grant in that would represent the interests of all of those organizations. So the board of directors of NCDD voted now almost a month ago, about 3 weeks ago, to act as the lead applicant on behalf of this collaborative project. If awarded, NCD would then provide coordination and act as the kind of the grant administrator, effectively being a go-between so that the state is not trying to manage 11 different relationships. The NCD would perform the kind of go-between in between those folks. And I expect that the total grant request that we're working toward here will be on the north side of $400,000. So here's just a quick summary of the folks who are at the table. Each of these organizations are likely to put in a request of somewhere between $20,000 to $50,000. The first is City of Newport Recreation Department is talking about new docks, pedal boats, and e-bikes that can be available for rental. Memphremagog Trails is talking about doing a modest trail building project, and if all goes well, they're hoping to pull together a proposal for a trailside warming hut, probably a yurt, because it will make it something that is relatively temporary, which will smooth out the process of having to do permitting. Because the proposal that we're operating under is on an implementation track. There were 4 tracks in VOREC that we could choose from. You had to choose one: implementation, planning, equity and inclusion, kind of making outdoor accessible to more people, and flood recovery from this summer. And we've chosen to move toward the implementation side. So it means all of our projects have to be ready to be implemented quickly if we get this grant. The third would be Memphremagog Community Maritime, which operates the Northern Star, to make capital improvements on the Northern Star, which we hope will increase the possibility for Northern Star to make deeper and longer trips into Canada. The dream is actually to be able to do trips like the old days all the way to Magog, and maybe even offer one-way bike trips to Magog, and then you can complete the circuit on bike, those kinds of things. The next group is a brand new nonprofit that formed this summer called Newport Community Sailing Center that is now up and running as a nonprofit. They're trying to raise money this year. They expect to purchase boats from this proposal, and they are seeking donations for other boats. They're going to try and do rentals of sailboats, including small boats like Sunfish, and sailing lessons with those, and also a number of newer and larger boats, so actual like family-style sailboats. They'll also be operating paddleboards and kayaks, and they've already arranged, I think, the first donation of 10 new kayaks for that project will be coming in from a company. NEK Guides is a very small project. It's a for-profit, a small single-person LLC. This is a guy up in Holland named Parker. I should remember his last name. I'm sorry that I don't. I'm juggling a lot of these right now. Say it again?
Castle.
Yes, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate it. So Parker is thinking about trying to add a boat trailer and staffing so that he'll be able to offer weekly, at least 6 or 7 weeks of the summer. He would offer Saturday canoe rentals and lessons to try and get people who are lower income on the water. And so that actually will be a real help to the overall proposal in terms of equity and access by folks who might normally not get to do it. Kingdom Games is on our list, hoping to purchase and refurbish a couple of boats. They'd like to purchase something probably used but much newer than anything they've currently got, and refurbish a couple of older boats that are less dependable in order to build capacity to support long-distance swims between Newport and Magog so that they'll be able to do more of that. You all should know, if you don't, that Kingdom Games is putting us on the map over and over and over again. It's a remarkable thing that this organization does. I'll say there too, that's the other, there are 2 in this list that are not nonprofits, Kingdom Games and NEK Guides. We've had a conversation and the state appears to be prepared to help support those as well as the rest. So, Bluffside Farm and the Vermont Land Trust would use a portion of this grant to purchase a tractor and the appropriate implements to try and maintain trails, fields, forest, and access to the connector bridge. This is kind of the next step, having completed the bridge and set up the trail system to be able to maintain it more appropriately. Northern Forest Center, who we mention often in our work, they've been remarkably helpful to us over the last several years, is interested in chiming in to hire a person who would try and actually build out further binational collaboration for what will, we hope, eventually be a bike circuit that is marked for the entire circumference of Lake Memphremagog. And so the first major step that we've taken on that, you'll all remember, was a proposal that we did with their help, where we hired a design committee to come in and do a wayfinding strategy from here up the path, the waterfront recreation path, and up the BB Spur Trail to the Canadian border. the next logical step is to work with a Canadian counterpart who's just been hired by the equivalent of the county around the lake, the northern part of the lake. They've just hired a person to focus on bike as well, and this person would be a partner to that person to try and help us build out and complete that circuit. Memphremagog Watershed Association would come in on this in order to combat invasive species and improve boat access on Memphremagog, particularly working on Phragmites and trying to remove Phragmites along the shore and make it easier for boats to get in and out. This last one I'm really excited about, and I expect Tom will be back to talk with you about it soon. The Mountaineer Snowmobile Club is interested in trying to work with City Council to bring the trail that they've created all the way down to the city waterfront area, the waterfront plaza area, across the bridge and into Pomerleau Park so that they'll have access to the businesses in Newport. In order to do that, they have to do two things. They need a groomer that's narrower and will allow them to groom those trails that are not as wide as the other ones that they maintain as part of the vast network. And the second is to try and find a way to modify the bridge to make it safe for both motorized and snowmobile use and for pedestrians. They've got a pretty cool proposal that they've opened a conversation with Tom about, and I expect they'll be back in a couple of weeks with Tom's help to talk with you all about that. And then finally, Newport City Downtown Development itself, in addition to be lead applicant, would come in to try and create and maintain a sister website to the Newport, discovernewportvt.com website that we already operate. The idea here would be to have a virtual outdoor recreation hub where visitors to the area can go to have a one-stop shop to find out what's going on in outdoor recreation in the Newport area. So the idea there would be, how can we match these folks with local guides who want to take them fishing and ice fishing and hunting and biking and hiking and running and whatever, right? To try and make that connection to how do we help get the local economy supported and stimulated by these visitors. But it would also be a place to go to find out about local trail conditions, what's safe to use and what isn't right now, given the mud conditions, whatever it might be, right? And maybe gear exchange and that kind of stuff. So those are the participating organizations. We can go to the next slide, please, Becky. I'll just mention, coming to the end here, there are some really natural synergies that I want to highlight for you. Sorry, lost my train of thought. The folks with VOREC at the state level said to us that anything we do that is building on the support that they gave several years ago to complete that bridge to connect Prouty Beach and Bluffside is going to be looked on with favor. So we see a lot of what we're proposing here to be logical next steps and extensions of the remarkable thing that was accomplished long before I arrived here to try and create that waterfront recreation path and the bridge. The second is just the notion that we can get 11 organizations, including the City of Newport and Newport City Downtown Development, to all work on the same page and coordinate our efforts together is a remarkable achievement. And folks, when we put out the initial request about this, I sent it to 6 organizations. All of them responded within 2 days and said, we're in. And then immediately others began contacting us to say, we want to be in too. So it's really exciting to see this kind of energy that's building. That online virtual hub, I can't overstate how important I think it is to the long-term ability to build out that four-season outdoor recreation economy in a way that will most directly benefit the local residents, the local businesses of this community. I promised you when I met with you the last time that I'll be back to talk about the electronic kiosk. You should know that we've put down half the money to have that thing built. It will be constructed in March and April. And long before then, I'll be back for a conversation with Tom about where we're going to put it, how we're going to put it. But whatever we end up doing with that electronic outdoor kiosk that will act as a 24-hour-a-day welcome center, 365 days a year, it will have a direct link to the virtual online hub and connect people to the variety of organizations that are working in this project. And then finally, another one that, just to give you a heads up, we have this proposal that I'm hoping to hear about in the next 10 days. Into Vermont Arts Council for $15,000. We're working with the students over at the high school. They've already done initial designs, and our idea is to do some sculptures, 10 sculptures, around the theme of outdoor recreation and outdoor life in Vermont. Things like, silhouettes of snowmobiles or mountain bikers or farms or animals that would go different walls in town. Don't picture like a cow on a sidewalk. Picture something flat on a wall that has 2 layers to it with acrylic behind and then a silhouette that's been cut out of an aluminum or stainless sheet of metal that would be mounted to it with lighting behind it, so that at night when you drive down or walk down the street, it will backlight it and you'll see it come through. It's going to be really classy and fun. And it's an all-volunteer effort that's being done. The students at the high school have been deeply involved. So I'm hoping that if that happens, it will have the QR codes directly to this website on the sculpture. So if somebody gets curious about it, they'll key in a QR code and immediately be taken to this website and find out all of what's available. And I think that's the last slide, isn't it, Becky? Yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Just wanted to give you a quick update.
I have a question. This is great stuff. It's very exciting that there's, putting all of this together and, a lot of stuff happening. So that's really good. I just kind of a little bit curious because a number of these things, events, or organizations deal with the lake and how great the lake is, which, all of us live here, we all think it is. How do we reconcile with the Don't Undermine Lake Renfrew Magog, and there's members who do pretty regularly letters about how polluted the lake is, about the lesions on the fish, and everybody's going to get cancer and die. So, and yet we're attracting people from all over the world to swim in the lake, and we want more people to come and participate. So how do we, as your organization, how does that reconcile saying that come and swim in our lake, but then we've got an organization telling you that you're going to die of cancer if you do?
Well, short answer is I'll let the organizations that are trying to do that promotion answer those questions.
Okay.
But the longer answer from my perspective is that we, the organization, absolutely supports the work that DUMP is doing to try and respond to the contamination questions. And in the meantime, there are all kinds of things that we can and should be doing to promote the beauty and the use of the lake. You'll notice that most of what we're promoting here is really designed to be low impact in terms of impact on the lake itself. These are things that are designed intentionally to be low impact.
Right, he's not all sorts of motorboats
But
and diesel and
I'm not
stuff like
prepared tonight to try and answer the question about.
No, I was just curious because often there's there's a letter and then there's like, oh, come and swim in the lake, and it's like in the same paper you're telling me it's polluted, but now you're telling me it's great. So I was just curious.
Yep.
Just curious.
Yes. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Nice to see the kiosk, as we talked about.
It's coming, Paul. I promised you it was coming.
You promised it was coming. Just a little history. Newport was actually one of the first communities to receive the VORAC grant. When Governor Scott announced it years ago, we were one of the first 2 communities.
I didn't know that.
Yep, we were one of the first 2 to receive the VORAC grant.
That's great.
Yep.
I noticed you had the snowmobile club involved. Have you also reached out to ATV clubs?
I made an initial overture, but didn't have relationships there, and I just haven't pursued it. There just hasn't been time to try and pursue it in the limited amount of time we have. The snowmobile club was pretty easy and quick because they had a quick, easy idea about access that they were already planning.
Madam Mayor, is the PowerPoint online, or may I have a copy of it?
I can send you a copy tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
I know, I should have brought a hard copy for Chris. I'm learning, next time I'll bring it.
I need a motion. Hard copies for Chris.
I'll have to copy Chris, but I'd like to have a minute.
You got it, I'll send it tomorrow by email.
Council members, any questions?
I just really appreciate your incorporation of the high school and the students. It really kind of brings them back to Newport and makes it important to them again, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you all.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the wastewater allocation with an anticipated vote. Is this going to be Tom? Mr. Bernier, is this you?
Do you want to talk about the,
Sure, if you want me to.
we're doing copies?
So I'd like to thank Mr. Bernier for stepping up to the plate and talking about.
So there's a laundromat that is going in on East Main over by the Eagles Club. There's a little small building in the back. They're asking for 2,052 gallons per day of additional water and wastewater to accommodate this new business. That's pretty much the gist of it. We have adequate water and sewer to afford giving them this allocation, so.
Any comments, questions? I have a motion to award this allocation.
Is it 1 or 2, just a reminder? 1 for wastewater, 1 for water?
Right.
Okay,
Yes.
So I move to accept the wastewater allocation for 42 Eagle Nest Drive.
I have a motion to accept the water allocation for 42 Eagle Nest Drive. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any further comment, discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion's carried.
Madam Mayor, what are the numbers?
Where's the paper? The numbers?
Right there on the other side.
2,052 gallons.
How many?
2052.
2,052.
2,000?
Yeah, 2052.
Okay,
Just give it a copy.
You know? Okay, second yes. Yes, no, go ahead.
The original's there for you to sign, but yes, do your second.
Well, I'm
motion
not gonna
first.
sign it until Chris approves it. Do you wanna do the, can I have a second motion now?
Was that for the water or wastewater?
For the waste, now it's for the wastewater.
Okay. I move to approve the allocation for the wastewater for 42 Eagle Nest Drive.
That was the first motion.
Oh, I thought we did the water first. Apologies.
I
You did.
withdraw that and I make a motion to approve the
Water.
water allocation for 42 Eagle Nest Drive.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion is carried.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought they were going both together. Is it the same?
No, it's to be separated.
Same number?
The numbers for the wastewater and
Same
for the
amount,
water, same amount.
2,052 what was in.
Where's what I need to
It's
sign for
on the
you?
other side of your gavel.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm gonna let
The
you
back
take it.
side of the first one.
Thank you, Mr. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the audit assignments with an anticipated vote.
We do this every year after our audit is complete. So it's our capital expenditure section that we carry forward. Any monies that we haven't spent. And these are the same line items we had last year. So it's to carry forward things like street resurfacing, public works vehicles, money we set aside for Pride Beach, the Gateway, Gardner Park, to do projects, update infrastructure over there at the facilities. And sometimes it's the fact of maybe we didn't get to the project, so it's carried over. Maybe we did it in July or August. Sometimes it's we're building up the money because, you know, we can only afford $30,000 a year, but maybe we need $100,000 to do the project. So, like I said, it's the same thing we normally have done every year for quite a few years now.
So these are just the roll forwards, right?
Yeah.
Any comments? Can I have a motion to approve the audit reassignment as presented to the council?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the audit reassignment as presented to the council. Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. Thank you, Rebecca. Next item on the agenda is to set the budget schedule.
So this year, we're a little behind on preparing our budget. Normally, we probably would have presented it to the council already. My goal is to get it to the council next week, a short week, so hopefully we'll have a proposed budget that you can start looking over before the next meeting, but we thought maybe we should set some sort of an audit, a budget schedule to review and think about what you may want to take on at your regular meetings, if you want to have special meetings. In the past, we've done departments together, like maybe the admin, police, fire. Usually we do public works and recreation together. We can, within those, kind of probably hit our capital in our other section. The ambulance has already come and talked with us. And I don't know if NCDD wants to come speak at some point. So those kinds of things. So I don't know what the council's thoughts are on that. I think the council had stated we were also going to go through our water and sewer budgets, which we hadn't done in the past at council meetings. So, and December is a short month for Mondays.
Do you want to give some suggestions as to how you were thinking of grouping the budget groups together, so then we can cut? And I know this is all tentative and it's open. Once we vote on this, it's going to be with the right to adjust or change.
Right. So the department heads, I think, when they present their sections, they'll cover the other and the capital sections within their regular budget. Usually admin, police, and fire have seemed to go pretty good at a meeting together. Recreation and public works kind of go hand in hand. And then obviously you'd need a meeting for your water and sewer budgets. It's a separate meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the past, one of the challenges for residents is that the budget doesn't get posted for us until like 48 hours before the review process started. And it's impossible to try to come in any type of informed way with only 48 hours of time with that 23-page document. So I'm just curious if we're gonna abide by the same protocol, the historical protocol, or we might make adjustments to getting it to the general public a little bit earlier. That's one question. The second question is, I know that you, Madam Mayor, made a motion that was passed by the council to look into the water and sewer funds, and whatever term you want to use, whether you were doing an investigation or a operational audit, I don't know, whatever term you're comfortable with, because that was a bone of contention for you. But if we can get those results of what you found, and what your opinions are in that regard before the review of the water and sewer budget commences, that would be hugely helpful as well.
Any other comments? So, and I am going to address that. Do I have a motion to set the budget schedule with the right to adjust as need be for timing?
Are we putting specific dates to it, or is that?
I think we're just going to kind of start to set it. I mean, we want, it's unless Rebecca wants us say, here we go, every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I mean, I'm here. So, yeah.
I know.
No, you're right.
We have 2 scheduled meetings in
Right.
December, and that's not going to be enough.
Yeah,
so.
it's good. We're going to do specials,
Absolutely.
but I just think we all have to see what works best for everybody. But if you want to lay them out, we can add those in and then adjust them. Or it's your preference? I'm gonna let you.
Well, here's a suggestion, maybe we just say what order we're gonna do them in. And if we feel at one meeting, we wanna do all of them, because we have the time.
All right, forget her suggestion.
But, so that we're not limiting ourselves to say we're gonna do, 2 or 3 departments, whatever we've decided for that one meeting, and find out, we actually have time, we could cover another department that night, that sort of thing to kinda, ideally, it would probably be nice to, between the 3 Mondays in December, get through all of them, and then in January, review them and make whatever changes people want to make in those budgets. But we may not get that far. I mean, we may need that meeting in January too.
Yeah, I anticipate we're going to need some
to
meetings.
just go through, whether, say it's water and sewer.
Right.
And then finalize, but I think Jim had said his drop dead date would be.
I've got to have that number by the 20th, meeting on the 20th of January. That's what I asked.
My feeling is I have no problem right now just setting up 3 meetings.
Okay.
And having that special meeting between, would be the 11th.
Yeah, but make sure we have the right to adjust.
Correct, yes. Like I said, I move to set the budget schedule with the right to adjust. Packaging some things together as well. So packaging, admin, PD, fire departments, rec with public works, and then the wastewater, water and sewage, with, again, the right to move things around as needed. That was the most concise motion I've ever made.
I have a motion from Councilman Vachon that is very explicit. Now I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments? Discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. I would like to add something to this discussion though, just so we know. So, as we're looking through these numbers, information comes out that we have not been privy to. And I would like everyone to know that as this information is being reviewed, it's going to be addressed during the budgeting process, and decisions are going to be influenced regarding, these decisions will influence rates, assessments, accounting procedures, other corrective actions that we will be discussing during this budgeting process. We have been working as a team, and I'd like to thank the department heads. They and I'd like to thank our controller, programs director, who's been putting together all of this so that we can talk and meet, and everybody has been so valuable. But one such example that was identified just in this short review was that there was a meter that was not working properly. And thank you to Mr. Bernier's team that finally did put the meter in and got it corrected over by the prison, but there was a shortfall of revenue there of $130,000. So the president of the council and I got on the phone with the prison, and we'll be dealing with that with the hopes of getting as much of that back as we can. So.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Okay, just give me 1 second.
Okay.
So we are going to be identifying, and some other things are going on that, and nothing, that's, been done to manipulate anything, okay? So please, when I say we're identifying things, it's just a matter of going through and saying, okay, we found this needs to be adjusted, we need to deal with this. And that is also why we're redefining kind of the job descriptions in the financial area to make sure that everybody stays within their scope and there's a check and balance system going on. Yes, go ahead.
So, if you turn up certain items, like for instance, that the appropriation of the city manager's salary of 2/3 in water and sewer is not supported by the evidence and not appropriate, and you're not going to, you know what I'm saying, something along those lines. Can you make that information available to the public? Can you make your findings
Yes,
available
yes.
to the public before
Yes.
we
Yes.
come in for these budget sessions? Because we need to be able to look at them, understand them, investigate, and come in informed.
And that's exactly what's going on. And that's why I just wanted to show you, we found as we find them, we're going to identify them. And I understand, I need to know, as well as the council members need to know before time, how everything needs to be adjusted. So yes, so we will.
Are you going to, you said you're gonna reveal them or publish them. Can you do it in a organized way rather than just like off the cuff, kind of sitting in a meeting? Can you, when you present the budget, can you put a page of the findings of the council?
No, I'll do it as I think it's appropriate because I don't know how it's going to be adjusted. It'll be organized, but it will be the way I organize it. So I'm not going to commit to a specific way you want it organized. Not in a bad way. I'm just saying I need to see what's going on and I need to look at the accounting. So, but you will understand it.
When the budget comes out though, it would seem that you ought to be able at that point to be able to put together a tally of your findings.
It might be, but I will do it the way I believe it needs to be presented. But thank you. Yes.
Now, I would assume, this is more of this stuff, you know. I would assume that you guys will do the budget. If you find a discrepancy, you will change it. You'll put that into the next budget to correct it and say, this is how we corrected it.
Right.
I would assume that's what so it'll be in the budget.
Yes, it'll be
that
in the
you come
budget,
up with.
unless
Why
but
it
if
needs to be
there's
reported
something
to one
that's-
individual, I have no idea.
Right,
Just
as we find things, if they need to be alerted, we will identify.
It's just part of the budget process.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, please. I just really would
Only
like to,
'cause
I just would really like to respond. This is not about me.
Okay, this isn't a debate.
No,
Done.
but what I'm saying is,
Done.
it's about making it to the public.
Done. The next item on the agenda. New business. President Wilson?
I have none.
Did we vote on that motion?
Oh, what? Oh, yeah, we did. The budget? Yeah, I spoke after. Okay. Councilman Charbonneau?
I don't know if it's new or old business, but the Causeway grant that was going to the lawyers for review, has that been, what's the status on that?
So actually, they just finished looking at all of the documentation and sent over what they needed to the various parties, and we should be finalizing that.
Okay.
It's one of our lawyers is going on vacation, but he got all the work done before.
Okay, thank you.
It just hasn't, we're waiting for everybody to come back, but it's all done as far as their legal information.
Okay, and the city manager search, contact's been made with the Vermont League?
Yeah, actually, I spoke with them, and they are finalizing the person who's going to be working with us, and we should have them any day. And then we will start.
Thank you.
And it'll be posted up.
Those were all my questions, new and old.
Okay, that works. Any new business?
Yeah, I have two. I was able to meet with the fire department at their monthly dinner, and John, you were right. I didn't get to stay for the dinner, but it looked and smelled delicious. And the Turkey Fest was bitterly cold, but my kids absolutely had fun from it, so kudos to all involved with that.
Any new information on treasures?
Yeah, I've got one liquor license that needs to be approved from $100 over here. Usually we know. I just need a motion to approve it.
Okay.
I can't do it on my own account.
Well, let me help you. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Could Mr. Wilson just repeat, I couldn't hear
Sure.
what?
Could you repeat that, please, Mr. Wilson? They couldn't hear it.
it's a liquor license application with Family Dollar store next door. It's an annual renewal.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The motion is carried. Any new business, Ms.? I'd just like to tell people that I actually did get to go to that cold, bitter, but it was wonderful. But then I got sent home, and I got to pardon the turkey from the house. Okay, so Turkey Hannibal Gobbler was actually pardoned, and I do want to tell everybody that on behalf of the council and myself, we do wish everybody a really happy Thanksgiving. Any old business, the next agenda item? Old business?
Yes, I want to thank the rec department. They did a real good job setting up for the Veteran Day ceremony on Saturday the 11th.
All set, thank you.
All set.
Any business? Okay. Next on the agenda is to set the regularly scheduled meeting December 4th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Done? Have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn or set the meeting.
No, we're still setting.
We're setting the meeting.
Yeah, I'll make that motion and set the meeting for December 4th.
At 6:30. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, and the motion is carried. Next item on the agenda, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at what time? 8:42.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.